Alrighty. So first of all, I just want to mention that these next couple of season preview will be pre-recorded, and the reason why that is the case is because in my News of the Week episode, I did talk about that I'm going to go to the Coachella Valley Invitational, which means that I'm not going to be at home these next couple of days. I won't be back home until Thursday. So yeah, these next couple of season preview will be pre-recorded in certain date. This season preview will be pre-recorded for tomorrow, and then I'll do another one after this one that most likely is also going to upload tomorrow, and then tomorrow morning before I go, I'll also do a season preview that will be uploaded on Wednesday as well. But with that being said, let us actually get to talk about the season preview of the Houston Dynamo. Oh, one more thing. I do know that the San Diego versus Pumas second leg game is tomorrow. That means I'll have to do the review of that game. Most likely, I'm going to have to do it at the hotel. You've seen me before in terms of doing review on the road from a hotel. That's pretty much what's going to happen. Anyway, let's get back to talk about the Houston Dynamo in the season preview. So, what's kind of interesting about the Houston Dynamo is that, early on in the offseason, it was a relatively quiet offseason. And that's where a lot of Dynamo fans were concerned. The fact that, well, it looks like it's once again the same old in terms of the front office, not spending the team and not improving the team when this team desperately need to do so. To the front office credit, it feels like maybe they listen to the fans because as the offseason go, that's when the moves start to make. And that's also the same case in terms of subtraction as well. They lost a lot of pieces. There was a lot of turnover with this team. It feels like this team almost looked like it could be a new team heading into this season with all the moves and all the players that is no longer on this team by the beginning of the season as well. But with that being said, they kind of had to do that in terms of doing a complete overhaul as they finished last season with a 9-10-15 record and finished with 37 points. Obviously, they didn't make it to the playoffs. Their last playoff appearance was 2024, but their last MLS Cup was all the way back in 2007. Their only two MLS Cup, of course, was 2006 and 2007. And as a San Jose Earthquakes fan, I'm pretty sure I wasn't bitter about those MLS Cup, especially the fact that those MLS Cup are win pretty much by the same Quakes team that kind of dominate the early 2000 and even in the mid 2000, and how many times that I've said before, and even some old time Quakes fans said that yeah, those two MLS Cup that the Dynamo won, while it's definitely gonna go down as the history of the Houston Dynamo, deep down it's should have gone down to the history of the San Jose Earthquakes if they, of course, didn't make that relocation. Should move back in 2006. Now, looking at the last five seasons, as I mentioned, last season they did make it to the playoffs. 9-10-15 is their record, finished with 37 points, but they did make it in 2024. 15-9-10, and they finished with 57 points, but it was an early exit in the playoffs. First round exit in the hands of the Seattle Sounders. And then in 2023, despite a little worse season with a 14-9-11 record and finished with 51 points, they made it all the way to the Western Conference Final. Like, it's just kind of almost out of nowhere, the fact that the team made it all to the Western Conference Final, but ultimately they lost to the eventual champion LAFC in the Western Conference Final. Or scratch that, not the eventual champion. I forgot they won it in 2012 and not 23. They lost to the Columbus Crew in 2023. So scratch why I said the eventual champion. I was a year off. But in 2022, when LAFC did win MLS Cup, the Dynamo finished 10-6-18 and finished with 36 points. Yeah, they didn't make it to the playoffs, and it was the same in 2021. It was even worse. 6-12-16 was their record and finished with just 30 points. This was also during a time when the Dynamo was just kind of spinning the tire. Like, this team was not going anywhere, where they haven't made it to the playoffs in quite some time. In fact, 2023 pretty much snapped a six-season playoff drought, and this is kind of why I think Dynamo fans thought that maybe they got out of the doldrum after that Western Conference Final run that they have after this team has, as I said, been kind of stuck in the mud, at least in the last couple years prior to that. Now, looking at some of the transfer that they made, like I said, they made a lot of moves this offseason. The biggest one, of course, is getting Mateus Bogusz this offseason from Cruz Azul. That was definitely an interesting signing, and especially I would have never guessed the fact that Bogusz was going to potentially come back to MLS and join the Houston Dynamo. Like, I had a feeling he was probably going to come back to MLS because he didn't really do well during his time with Cruz Azul, but Houston is definitely not a team I thought he would be joining, and we'll see how much of an impact he will make. And I'm pretty sure the Dynamo are hoping that he'll make a big impact because they pay a lot. to get him, and especially made him a designated player as well. They also got Guillermo, a new winger for them, and then they also got Lucas Halter, a new center back. They also got Augustine Bozard, and then most importantly, they brought back Ache in this team. And the fact that Ache didn't have to serve his suspension, despite the fact that he probably should have done. Even I know he did serve his suspension in the Liga MX, but that's not how it works. Like when you get suspended in one league, you don't get a choice in terms of getting a chance to serve that suspension in another league. They're two different leagues. There's a reason why you see in world football the fact that you don't see a player get a red card in like the Premier League, and basically you get a chance to maybe have a chance to serve it in the UEFA Champions League. It doesn't work like that. So was very surprised the fact that the league decided to allow that. So he should be ready in the beginning of the season, despite the fact that it's pretty clear that he probably shouldn't, to the dismay of many people. They also got Franco Negri from San Diego FC, and then they also got Nick Marcanic. Anthony's brother is now in MLS, and when the Dynamo does play against Minnesota, it's not just the Dylan Whopper derby anymore. It's the Anthony Nick Marcanic derby, or should I say the Marcanic brother derby as well. Very interesting to see which Marcanic brother will do well, and especially which Marcanic brother would score the most goal. Because while we know Nick Marcanic has known to be a goal scorer, especially during his time in the USL Championship of breaking that record for the most goal any USL Championship player have ever scored. Anthony himself has started to score goals. In fact, during the preseason, he's already got goals to his name. So yeah, I'm very interested to see when the Marcanic brother face off against each other, and that of course will score more goals. My bet is definitely going to be on Anthony, though. I am a Loons fan, so maybe I'm a little bit biased because of that. Anyway, in terms of players that's no longer on this team, there's a lot to go over. Brooklyn Reigns, Sebastian Kowalczyk, Franco Escobar, Femi Odensu, Eric Duenas, Damian Lowe, Jefferson Valverde, Junior Urso, Gabe Seago, Kieran Sargent, Sergio Santos, Amin Bassi, Ethan Bartlow, Daniel Steres, and Andrew Tarbell, who of course announced his retirement. So that's a huge part of the core. Again, it is pretty clear that this team is going through an overhaul, and it makes sense because, again, with the way that last season, how stale things have gone, it just feels like this team needs an overhaul. This team is not going to get themselves a bounce back year, like what we maybe saw back in 2024 when they had a good season. It just feels like last season was a tale that this team is not going to go anywhere. And I give credit the fact that the front office actually was very proactive in terms of it, because I'm pretty sure previous Dynamo front office would not do that. Previous Dynamo front office would just kind of stay pat and think that, well, things are going to be better next season, when in reality it's just going to go downhill from that. Now, look at the first 5 games of the season. They face against Chicago at home for their first game, and then they face against LAFC at home before going on the road to face against New England. They return home to face against the Portland Timbers, and then they got that Texas Derby against FC Dallas on the road on March 21st. Speaking of the Texas Derby, they will play the FC Dallas at home on October 17th to start off the last 5 games. Then they have the Dylan Whopper, aka the Marcanic brother derby against Minnesota at home. Then they go on the road to face against Seattle before going on the road to face against the Portland Timbers. So yeah, in the span of 3 days, they get to play against the two Cascadia team. I wonder whether or not if Houston might even just stay in the Cascadia area, considering I mean Seattle and Portland, they're not that far apart. There's probably no need for them to fly back to Houston and then fly to Portland for the game on November 1st. But after that, their decision day game is going to be against St. Louis City at home. So look at the strength of this team. I would say it's the midfield. Again, when you look at the new shape midfield of this team, it's definitely feels like it's a little better. It is a little bit old though, especially in the central midfielder. In fact, speaking of old, this is actually the oldest team coming in to this season, and it's not a big surprise. There's a lot of players on this team that is in its 30s. But one thing that is kind of interesting, as I'll get to the free big question, even though I know we talk about the old guys like Hector Herrera and even guys like Guillermo or Augustine Bozard, but all three of those guys are over for 30. There's some young talent as well. I mean, people forget that Mateusz Bogusz is still only 24 years old, and Jack McGlynn is still on that team, and he's still is in his early 20s and have shown potential to be a really the good player and even have U.S. men's national team aspiration at, as well. So it's kind of interesting that while yes, there are some old guys on this team, there is some youth injection on this team at as well. Now, look at the weakness of this team. It's got to be the defense and goalkeeping. So that's the thing that is a huge question with this team, and I'll probably just jump straight into talk about the third big question of this team about the defense and the goalkeeping, and that is, do they even want to fix that problem? Because the way I see how their backline and their goalkeeping situation, it's almost the same as last year. I mean, the only difference is they did get Lucas Halter, who maybe will help this defense, but besides that, I mean, it's pretty much the same backline, and they bring the same goalkeeper. And when you have a team that give up 50 plus goals last season and was among one of the worst defensive team in the league, I don't think bringing back that defense and hope that they'll have a bounce back year might be the solution in terms of trying to be back competitive. I mean, I have a feeling they'll probably need to fix that defense. And I also have a feeling they need to get a new goalkeeper as well. Jonathan Bond, last season when he came in, he was not a great goalkeeper. And I think we kind of knew that even during his time with the Galaxy. He has the ability to make some big save at times, but he's also have the ability in terms of give up soft goal as well. He's kind of, in other words, very inconsistent and not really just an MLS starting caliber kind of goalkeeper. So I would be surprised they might be looking for a new goalkeeper as soon as in the summer as well. But that is definitely going to be on the top of the priority that they need to find a way to fix that defense. I mean, it doesn't matter how good the attack is. And I have a feeling, with their focus a lot on the attacking end, they really want to make the attack much stronger because that was a struggle last season as well. But it doesn't really do any help the fact that the defense are leaking goals left, right, and center, and that was also a huge problem with this team as well. Speaking of the attack, so look at the attack, and the one big question I definitely have is the fact that will Hector Herrera, Ache, will he be back being the a starter of this team and a guy that is kind of pulling the string in his deep line playmaking ability, or the fact that he's going to be more used as a super sub? And the reason why I asked that is the fact that when you look at this team, I can definitely see that he could be a starter because he was such made a big impact on this team. But you got to also remember he is near the twilight of his career, and doing his time with Toluca, he didn't really look that spectacular. He kind of looked a little washed. Now maybe him getting back to the Dynamo and knowing that he has the ability to really be one of the more dangerous deep line playmaker in this league. Maybe that will rejuvenate him. But yeah, it'll be very interesting to see whether in his second stint is he going to be back as a starter, or the fact that he's going to more use as a super sub this season, especially with the booster midfield that maybe might not guarantee that Hector Herrera will be a day one starter or a regular starter for this team heading into this season. And then of course, talk about the attack and the midfield as well. It's a mixture of old guys and young attack. So on one hand, you got old guys like Augustin Bozar, Hector Herrera, and Guillermo. All of those guys are over 30s. But then you have guys like Mateus Boguj, Ezekiel Ponce, and even Jack McGlynn. They're on one of the wing that are all under 30 as well. And in the case of Boguj and McGlynn, both of those are guys are under 25 as well. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's kind of a mixture of that. I wonder how that dynamic is going to look heading into this season. I'm assuming it's probably going to be better. The one thing I do also have a big question with this team, even though I didn't put it up there, do they really trust Ezekiel Ponce will be that guy that will be the goal scorer for this team in that number 9 position? Because yes, I know last season he let the team in go, and yes, I know the number says that he actually seems like he had a decent season. But you got to also remember there were times where some of the goals that he scored are from the spot, and the underlying number doesn't really like him at all. And when you also look at how he's performed, he at times was just a very frustrating player, a guy that just doesn't make the run and doesn't do the hard work to get yourself set up in a good position where you can be played through and goal. In other words, his work ethic was not there. last season. And for a guy that, the fact that he scored 10 goals and was still being the top goal scorer of this team says a lot in terms of how bad that attack was last season. But you just feel like if his work ethic is there, if he can work a little harder, there's no doubt that this attack can be even much better than what it was like last season, and that's could be very interesting to see because if that's not the case, they might have another situation like the Seba Ferreira situation, and that was not a great situation for the Dynamo to find themselves in. So looking at the prediction of this team, I'm gonna say for Hyde, they'll probably make it back to the playoffs and get themselves in sixth position. The attack will definitely carry them, but I do worry a lot about the defense and the goalkeeping, and that's kind of also the reason why their floor is a little bit low because of it. I predicted that their floor is probably going to be almost the exact same spot that they finished last season in 11th place. If that defense started to collapse itself like they did last season, and they don't have the goalkeeping, again, I know that there are some teams where they have that issue and they can overcome that. I mean, the Galaxy is a great example of that, where they can definitely overcome the weak defense that they had. Even with this Dynamo team, that seems like it's a little bit more improved. I would think this season on the attacking end. Not quite sure if that's enough for them to overcome the defensive fluidity that this team has had, and that's got to be something that they have to fix, either for this remaining of this offseason or maybe even in the summer transfer window as well. I've said this before, where whenever a team's heading into the season, and I know obviously this team needs things for both on the attack and on the defensive end. But I seen before where teams try to maybe fix the attack, and while it definitely makes the team a little bit more exciting to watch, it doesn't get them resort more times or not when teams don't really address the defense, which is one of the biggest need. More times than not, those teams usually fail. So yeah, we'll see what happened with the Houston Dynamo. We'll see whether or not they can be good enough this season, especially on the attacking end, to mitigate their defensive shortcoming heading into this year. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below if you're a Dynamo fan. What do you think is the strength, the weakness, the free big question, and your big prediction in terms of how this team is going to look heading into this season. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.